Hello y'all and welcome back to my channel. In regards to the gameplay this time around, I'm going to be going deeper into the caves. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully I don't die. But without further ado, here are the stories. Here goes the first story. Okay, so I'm staying in an Airbnb and it turns out I clogged the toilet. Why? Because I couldn't be bothered to go buy toilet paper. So I wiped with paper towels. Not the brightest idea, but nothing to panic about yet. I try using the plunger. It doesn't work. Annoying. I Google it and read that apparently hot water helps unblock things. Perfect. I'll boil some water. I grab the kettle and listen. I don't drink tea. I never boil water. The last time I boiled water was 10 years ago, so I do what I used to do with my good old kettle back then. I put it on the induction stove to heat it up. Everything's fine. I go to the bedroom to look at my phone, and 2 minutes later, I hear a strange noise in the kitchen, and there's smoke. I go check, and it's a horror scene. The kettle is catching fire, and there's smoke everywhere. It's 2025. Of course, the kettle is electric and made of plastic, and the plastic is catching fire. Full panic. I grab the kettle and throw it out the window, luckily onto the balcony, because yes, the Airbnb is on the 80th floor. I was this close to launching a meteorite onto some poor pedestrian. Alright, the kettle is on the balcony, but there's still smoke everywhere, and of course the fire alarm goes off. Now, total meltdown. I open the windows and I run because I'm pretty sure burning plastic fumes are super toxic, but mostly I'm wondering if I've just caused the evacuation of a 90-story building. I run down to reception and explain that the fire alarm is going off, but don't worry. It's not because there's a fire, it's just because they have the honor of hosting the biggest idiot of the 20th century. I go back up and thank God the owner never changed the alarm because it's 000, so I'm able to shut it off. I'm now in this apartment that reeks of burnt plastic with melted plastic on the induction stove, a completely destroyed kettle on the balcony, and still a clogged toilet. I'll speed up the rest because luckily it ends well. I buy some cleaning products and manage to save the stove. I buy some kind of poop gun for the toilet. Very expensive but very effective because I tried several plungers and nothing worked, so I had to use that. I could go into the fact that I spent 2 hours waddling in my own crap because it was really blocked, but that's not that important for the story. And I buy a new electric kettle, although together it cost me over $200 in the end, but hey, it could have been worse. Like, I could have burned down the apartment. TLDR, I tried to boil water in a kettle on the stove thinking it was an old school one, but it turned out to be electric, so I basically just cooked plastic and wiring. Okay, here goes the second story. Both my kids are in college. Though my teaching job, my kids can attend my private college, $50,000 plus tuition for free, or one of our exchange colleges for close to free. My kids don't like any of the colleges in the list, including mine. My ex-wife is proposing that it is fair to pay the amount of our state's college tuition plus room and board, though they could live at home if they attended there. The cost is 300K per kid, which means 300K each for my ex and I. 300K is over a third of my annual salary. My ex has already told me that the kids that this is a done deal. I will pay, she said. Whatever you decide to pay, and she will somehow take care of the rest. So clearly the expectation is if I'm not a total dick that I will split it half and half. She makes less than I do. I don't want to pay any of it. I'm stuck with this job in part for the benefits, the tuition benefits specifically. I also don't want to say, okay, I'll pay 5K per kid per year because they could be going for free and they choose not to, because then I'm the asshole. But am I the asshole? Help, I feel like a stingy jerk, but I would really like to have some boundaries. Personally, I don't think this guy's the asshole. I think he has every right to feel justified in not paying off his kid's tuition. But let me know down in the comments what y'all think. Okay, here goes the third story. My best friend had a baby, and she loves to take and send photos of that baby, which is understandable. Babies are adorable and all consuming. I live far away from her. Sometimes she sends me like 25 photos at a time. I know she's just wanting to share her life with me, and her kid is the most important part of her life. I am child free by choice, and while I love my friend's kids, I'm not much of a baby person. I try to love and appreciate babies, but it's always a stretch. I feel bad about this sometimes, but that's just how I feel. My friend is very comfortable starting huge group texts and welcoming lots of crosstalk. When she was in labor, she started a 120-person group WhatsApp For example, when she has a mental health crisis, she'll start a 30-person group chat with a bunch of people I don't know. In some ways, it's something I admire about her. She's unafraid of asking for support and to be witnessed during the big moments in her life, and she's values including people. Other parts of me find this behavior to be kind of entitled. Maybe I'm too afraid to just start a huge group chat about a big thing in my life, and therefore I judge her for it, but I also find it intrusive. Anyways, recently she added me to a 70-person WhatsApp group for daily photos of her baby. I messaged her that sadly I did not want to participate because I use WhatsApp for work and other things, and I find huge chats overwhelming, but that I'll gladly continue to receive pics in our one on one texting. She seemed pretty hurt and pointed out that I have no issue being in another friend's WhatsApp group about her baby. That's true, but that's because that other friend only posts once a month or so and is much more thoughtful about how she uses the group. I feel this is honestly causing a rift between us. It feels so petty, and yet it also feels deep somehow. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just a huge Kermadugan. I don't even know how you say that, and should have sucked it up and been quietly annoyed about the group but not said anything. However, it's clearly about a deeper issue, the ways in which we feel or don't feel entitled to the attention of others. One last thing to note, she added me to the group during the most important weekend of my career while I was facilitating a very high stakes and emotional retreat, which my friend knew about. In some ways, because I am child free by choice, my career is my baby, but it's not something seen and cherished by others like a baby is. Anyways, I welcome your insights. Thanks. Edit, I followed up with her the other day and said I'd be fine joining, but just gave her the heads up I might leave if it gets overwhelming. She said she'd rather not add me because she doesn't want to feel self conscious about posting too much. So joining now and muting is no longer a possibility, sadly. That probably would have been the move, but again, it's more than this one text thread. I find it annoying when she photo dumps 30 plus pics and videos at a time and feel like I have to respond in some incredible, thoughtful way, and it just feels like a lot of pressure. Okay, here's the fourth story. We're in our 70s. We've been married for many decades. He is self-employed, so there is no required dress code. He used to take care of himself, however, he's grown his hair long mid-back, often doesn't brush it, and will go out in public with a tangled mess, or hair escaping his ponytail. He lost a tooth 6 years ago, got a prosthetic, and refuses to wear it. He smokes and drinks coffee, so his teeth are very stained, dark yellow/light brown. He won't use whitening strips or get them lightened by the dentist. Hair grows on and out of his nose. He shaves infrequently. He's been doing his own laundry for years and will wear wrinkled, dirty clothes in public. That is, unless he's going around people he wants to impress. He's now into collecting firearms and brags about new purchases to others. I've overheard why doesn't he do something about his teeth instead of buying new toys. He is quick to judge and make negative comments or rude comments about other people's appearance, but doesn't hold himself to the standards he holds others. Frankly, I'm embarrassed by his behavior and have stopped inviting him to business/social functions with me. I'm socially and professionally active. We have different last names, so I no longer mention I'm married to him. There have been situations where I did not introduce him. Don't get me wrong, I still love him even though I'm extremely annoyed. Divorce is not an option for me. I take pride in my appearance. I brush my hair and remove under eye makeup before I walk out of the bathroom in the morning. I am well dressed at home and out in the world, as I have been since before we met. I'm frequently told I always look great. Although I'm now 25 pounds overweight, I'm always well groomed, stylish, and accessorized even at home. I tell him that I don't want people judging him and making fun of him. Husband says I'm being a bitch, trying to control him, and he doesn't give a fuck what people think about him. He says I am the only one judging him. Our adult kids are embarrassed by his appearance as well. They've asked me if he even brushes his teeth. Only 2 family members and one friend have dared say something to him. He has no response to them. So am I the asshole? I appreciate your unbiased opinions. I don't think it's you being an asshole, having an opinion about your husband, trying to make sure that he's well kept and well maintained. I don't think this person is the asshole, but if you think otherwise, let me know down in the comments. Okay, now for the next story. I, 23 male, work at an exotic pet shop. As a part of our shop, we offer boarding services for when people go away on vacation, since it can be hard to find someone to watch your pet lizard. Recently, we had a customer drop off their bearded dragon to us for boarding. They purchased her about a year and a half ago. When she left, she was a healthy sub-adult. The family did a ton of research, so we felt comfortable with her going home with them. A few months back, she was dropped off to be boarded. When she came in, she was severely underweight. I brought it up to them and they said that she looks the same, that she was eating and that everything was normal. Fast forward a few days ago and dropped her off again for boarding. At the time, I wasn't working, but when my boss saw her condition, he told me that he spoke to them out for how long they were taking poor care of her. He gave her some medicine, placed her into a hospital enclosure, and asked me to check on her when I got into work. When I went into work, the entire place reeked of death. She had passed away overnight. She looked incredibly skinny, practically skin and bone. Her eyes were crushed over with dried skin, and when you flipped her on the back, you could literally make out the outlines of her organs and her bodies. She was stiff as a board and unresponsive. I called the number they left in her boarding log. I called a few times, each time instantly going to voicemail. A little upset, I called one final time and left a voicemail. I said that the lizard had passed away and that I wanted to speak with them about their husbandry. Husbandry? I told them that she looked incredibly emaciated and that she looks like she hasn't received proper care in months and to call me back ASAP. And about an hour later, I got a phone call from my boss saying that they had called him about the voicemail I had left. They told him that I was rude, disrespectful, and the voicemail was completely uncalled for. He asked me what I had said, and I told him word for word what I had said. He simply just said, okay. This morning, the mom and son came in to come receive the dragon. When they came in, she said that I don't have the right to talk to her like that. She also said that I don't know the circumstance and that claiming that they neglect the animal was wrong. I told her that when you decide to get a pet and you claim that it's part of the family and cared so much about it that the animal shouldn't look the way she did. I told the son, 19 male, that I know that life gets busy sometimes, but if you can't take care of the animal, either figure out a better routine or put it up for adoption. Her son swore that he was caring for it and she was fine a week ago. I told him that this doesn't happen over a week. You should have brought it to a vet or put her up for adoption. Her condition is just unacceptable. Upset, they took the dragon and walked out. So am I the asshole? Absolutely not. I don't think this person is the asshole at all. I feel like when you take on the responsibility of owning a pet, if you're not able to maintain them, it is your responsibility to either put them up for adoption to be given away or to starting to care for them. I don't think this person was the asshole. But if you think otherwise, let me know down in the comments. Okay, now for the next story. Okay, so I bought this plot of land in a remote village in the mountains of a house, and I kept adding more and more land to it. The main plot has an old house on it, which we invested quite a bit in to make look livable and modern. Next to it, there's an empty plot, which I was told had no owner. And after that, there's another plot with an old unlived-in house. For the past 3 years, I tried to buy the empty plot next to me. I had been told that the owner had died long ago with no heir, like 40 years ago. At the village hall, I was told nobody knew who the owner was because the old owner died in 1985 without kids. My plan was to buy the plot next to us and the one next to it and make a very large yard for our animals. We rescued dogs and cats. Eventually, we found out the old owner had a distant relative who came in and did the paperwork to put the empty plot in his name. I asked him if he was willing to sell it. I offered him a lot of money, more than double the home price. He refused. I found out why he wanted to build a home for his son there. So I went ahead and bought the third plot, the one on the other side of his plot, for the purpose of putting our farm animals there, as the one has a paddock and a barn. We like to grow our own food. What started as a holiday home project has now evolved into a hobby farm. We own the land at the back of all the house plots, so we bought the other house plot, built a proper fence, and unified it at the back with the rest of our land. We put our pigs and cow in the third plot's barn because pigs smell. The owner of the middle plot came by this week. He lives in the city some 80 kilometers away. When he saw we bought the third plot and we had basically enclosed his property, he went hysterical, started to scream and threaten. He claimed we only bought the third plot to enclose him and stop him from building his house. It has caused a lot of rumors. He even went to complain to the village hall. We didn't do anything illegal, but some people in this village are on his side in an attempt and on his side, and the atmosphere has become a little tense. Info: his plot is some half an acre. He has room to build a house and make a garden. Am I the asshole for buying the third plot? Okay, now for the next story. Yesterday, I was playing Apex while my wife was having a voice lesson for about an hour. When she was finished, she was excited to talk to me about her lesson. I was in the middle of an online match with about 5 minutes left. True. I asked her to wait until the game was over and then we could talk. She got upset and called her friend instead. She told me that she felt I had plenty of time to play games and that her happiness shouldn't have to be on hold. My view is that waiting a few minutes to let me finish an online match seems reasonable. If it was a single player game, I could just pause it so she spends the rest of the evening in a poor mood and we hardly talk to each other. This isn't the first time we've had this issue. A few weeks ago, she was at a choir camp for almost a week. When she came home and I happened to be playing a game, she wanted me to come outside right away to see her garden's progress. I asked her to wait until my game was done, but she said I had 3 seconds before she'd get mad. I closed the game and I went outside, but she was still in a bad mood afterward and told me a lot of things she felt I was doing wrong. Am I the asshole for asking for a few minutes to finish my games before giving her my attention? I feel like it's I feel like that's an uphill battle. I feel like no matter what, you're always going to be in the wrong, especially explaining that to your wife. But I feel like if you were doing that to anybody else, I feel like it's understandable coming from someone who also plays video games. But I feel like it's only the case that you're not the asshole if you truly mean only 5 more minutes and not 20 or 30 or 40. Okay, for the next story. So, I, 16 female, have been dyeing my hair for about 3 years. I love it. That makes me feel like me. My parents, however, mostly my dad, do not like my hair being unnatural. My natural color is blonde, and that's how he wishes it would stay. He already doesn't agree with the way I dress, that being grunge, and thinks I need to dress more girly and preppy. Anyways, I had bleached my hair black to blonde to please my parents before school started, and it lasted a good 5 weeks before I started feeling uneasy every time I looked in the mirror. I did not like the blonde. I texted my dad and he told me that jobs won't take me with dyed hair, and I counter it with the jobs I'm currently looking at don't care. Retail. He never replied and he picked me up later that day. We go to the store and I start browsing hair dyes. I wanted dark red. He sees me and visibly gets upset, but he buys it for me anyways. We go to the car and I apologize for the price of the hair dye, and he tells me it isn't about the hair dye and goes on to say that the career I want, an attorney, but that's way down the line, is going to look at me and turn me away. He's a judge, and he said that at work he tells me his buddies what I want to be, and that they would tell him I can come work for them later on, but they aren't going to want me because of my hair being all sorts of colors. I tell him that maybe they aren't for B, and he gets pretty upset. He tells me that I need to conform to them and I can't just say something is not for me. He yells a bit more, but I just ignore it. I didn't say anything back, and there's a bit of silence before he says I won't find whatever I'm looking for in a box of hair dye. We get home and I go to my room, dye my hair, go to the kitchen, and he yells at me about conforming. I feel like he's embarrassed about me. I know he doesn't like not having a girly daughter like when I was a kid, but I'd wish he'd understand that my hair isn't going to be like this in the future and I just want to have fun now. Am I the asshole? Okay, for the next story. This was not today, but I remember it very regularly, and today it came to mind again. So, I was about 8 when I first learned about 9/11. I'm not from the US, so it wasn't something we talked about much in school, and until then I never even heard of it. One day in September, personally, I assume it was on this exact day, just about a decade later, given the news report of it that day. 9/11 was shown in the news, talking about what had happened then. I asked my grandpa about it. He told me how he'd seen it on TV way back when it happened. It was afternoon where we live, and he described watching the news. He also told me that most people remember where they were that day or when they found out about it. Well, I remember walking outside afterward into the big empty fields next to my house and just thinking, little 8-year-old me stood there contemplating life, imagining my grandpa sitting in their living room watching TV. Here's the thing, my child brain didn't really separate the day I learned about something from the day it actually happened. In my mind, the memory of standing in that field was the day 9/11 happened. So for literal years afterward, if someone mentioned 9/11, I would confidently say, oh yeah, I remember where I was when that happened. And I did remember it, except I was remembering the day I learned about it several years after it had happened, and also after I was born. No one corrected me for the longest time. In the end, a teacher did in front of the class. Now, every so often, I remember kid me solemnly recounting my memory of 9/11 to people who absolutely knew I wasn't alive then, and I wanted to crawl into the nearest hole and stay there forever. TLDR, I told people where I was when 9/11 happened, even though I wasn't even alive then. Okay, for the next story. My family's still relatively new to composting, but after a successful garden last year, heavier reliance on produce year, and plenty of backyard space to make compost piles, we decided to keep a small bucket in our kitchen for composting. A while back, my parents left for a work trip vacation, and the compost bucket was emptied of its goods and the liner on the inside. I did not compost while they were away because of this. I was under the impression that when there was a bag in the bucket, we could put scraps, coffee grounds, and other goods inside. So when they got back home, A new bag was put into the compost bucket, and I began to put things in there. It started with some peach bits, avocado skin, apple cores, the ends of a zucchini, and before I knew it, there were at least 20 fruit flies on top of the bucket lid before I even opened it. That felt out of the ordinary, but I figured that we would take it out sooner or later because it usually fills up in less than a week. I also thought that the increase in fruit flies was due to our new fruit haul, as the flies always sneak in with the bananas and peaches. Well, a week went by and the flies hadn't gone away. The fruit pie had dwindled, but the flies grew in number. To be honest, I have no idea how long it's been, but I've seen more and more flies with each passing day. I've been sick recently, so I haven't paid much attention to the bucket anyways. Then today, while I was standing by the compost bucket talking to my sister, she commented on the amount of flies on the walls, cabinets, and surrounding fruits. That's so odd. I thought mom said we weren't composting this week. My heart skipped a beat. I had completely forgotten to check how full the compost was, and if the only thing I was putting and if I was the only one putting things into it, then it was long past its regular takeout time. Before I could stop her, she lifted the lid to the compost bucket. All hell broke loose. A black cloud arose from the opening of the bucket. Flies went everywhere. We screamed, and I think I inhaled a few. Anywho, we eventually took out the compost, swatted at flies for a bit, and laughed it off. I tried and failed to kill them with cleaning spray. It's been a few hours, but there are still groups of fruit flies everywhere. I've set up some fruit fly traps and drowned at least 20, but I swear they keep spawning out of thin air. No matter how many I squash, they keep reappearing in the same spot. I want to swat at one, and suddenly there were 3 others taunting me. There are 5 pestering me as I type this. They have managed to spread from the kitchen to every other room in the house. I will never neglect the compost again. TLDR, I put food into the compost bucket under the impression we were composting, but the bucket was neglected for a few weeks. Now we have a nightmare fruit fly colony in our house. Don't be like me, take out the compost before the flies find out about it. Okay, for the next story. This happened about 2 years ago when me, 25 male, and my girlfriend at the time, 21 female, decided to do a small trip to the south of Portugal and go to a water slide park. The plan was to drive there on a Saturday at night, go to the water slide park on Sunday morning, and drive back in the afternoon. For context, on Saturday we had quite a busy and tiring day. We went to have lunch with her folks at it was a 1 hour drive from where I live, spend the rest of the afternoon with my friends, had dinner with them, and only left about 10 p.m. From here to the south of Portugal, it's about a 3 hour drive, so needless to say, we arrived very late. This is where the fun begins. When we got there, the receptionist was either high or they spent the previous night rearranging their letter. Spaghetti bowl alphabetical order, hard to tell. After a very tedious conversation, they finally managed to confirm our reservation and we made our way to our room. I booked the cheapest room for 2 people, which wasn't cheap at all. So we were surprised to see it had, drum roll please, a bath with a hydro massage system, just what we needed after a tiring day. Like any other hotel, they had those little bottles of soap, quite a few of them actually, about 6, and my ex asked me how many we should put in, 1, 2, or 3. Now I don't know about you, but if I pay for a service, I'll use everything I paid for, like Ross from Friends, soap bottles included. Thus, without a second thought, I told her all of them. We started filling up the tub and dropped the soap bottles in 3. There, and my genius of an ex-girlfriend, Harris the ex, suggested we should put really hot water because by the time we get in, it would have cooled down and it would be at the right temperature. My naive brain didn't think twice and went along with it. While we waited for it to fill up, we were really curious as to how the hydro massage function worked because there were 2 inputs, a tactical button and a knob. I pressed the button and voila, it started working with a very distinct brrr sound. We noticed the bubbles started growing too quickly, so we decided to shut it off until we got in. I pressed the button to shut it off, except it didn't. Tried 2 times, 3 times, nothing. We mildly panicked, but we thought it shouldn't be that big of a problem, right? 2 minutes later, the tower of bubbles reached the height of my waist. The water and soap were growing unlike my will to live, and the tactile button was neither tactile or even a button for that matter, just a trap we fell into. I tried turning the knob, but it just came off and wasn't attached to anything. The person who installed this has a wicked sense of humor. We thought about turning the water off, but as soon as I put my foot in the tub, it feels like I stepped into the surface of the sun, which turned my foot bright red for the rest of the night because someone had a bright idea earlier. There was a glass wall next to the faucet, so we couldn't reach it without getting in. My ex gave it a go and managed to close the tap. The hydro massage system kept going, and the bubbles, however, did not seem to stop growing anyway. We were laughing loudly during the entire process, so much the neighbors started slamming the wall. Sorry, but we couldn't help it. We tried transferring the bubbles to the sink and bidet, which worked until they were full of bubbles too. We had no more ideas, so I just got dressed and went down to the reception to ask for help. I didn't want to get kicked out of the hotel, so I didn't want to make a big deal out of it when I explained the situation. Remember the receptionist I told you about earlier? Well, when I asked to speak with them, they replied another couple was checking and told me to wait. As they moved and talked in slow mo, sloth like, I was screaming inside, panicking, but the nonchalant look on my face didn't give it away. Finally, I explained the situation to them, and another person came upstairs to look at that slightly troublesome situation. As soon as they opened the door, well, they started laughing. The bubbles had spread all the way into the bedroom, while the bathtub had a waterfall of bubbles coming down from the inside of it into the ground. The man managed to open the electric panel, turned off the electricity, and gave us some towels to try and pick up the mess. Since the cleaning crew could only come in the morning, although we were very tired, not taking a bath wasn't an option. So we cleaned it up. It was already about 5 a.m. when we finally managed to take a bath. We went to the water park the day after I got sick, and we came back to the house quite early. Was it worth it? I don't know if I can recommend a bubble bath like this one, but amidst the chaos and pain from the long day, it was one of the funniest nights I've ever had. Feel free to leave a question. TLDR, had a long day with my ex-girlfriend, went to hotel with her, wanted to take a bath in a tub with hydro massage, put too much soap. Many bubbles started to appear. Hydro massage wouldn't turn off, which made even more bubbles. Hotel man came to the rescue. We cleaned it up, took a bath at 5 a.m., went to the water park the next morning, got sick, and came back home early. And it added the useless knob just like its brother, the button. Okay, for the next and final story. I had to share this story somewhere and I get it off my chest. It's just so absolutely insane, so I just started working as a CNA, certified nurse assistant, at an LTC, long-term care facility. 2 months ago, I'm a 22 male, and I'm the only male in the facility. So right off the bat, I was getting a lot of looks and flirts from all the nurses, CNAs, RNAs, and patients in the facility. As you all know, we're a bunch of horn dogs in the healthcare field, so I started immediately hooking up with anyone who initiated with me first. Hooked up with a few CNAs near my age and an RNA that was a little older. I do NOC shift, and every time I hooked up with one of them, we ended up doing it in the facility. It just seems to happen when it's me and the other female on the floor at 2 a.m. and the halls are dead silent. One time was in the linen closet, and the other two times were in an empty room. The resident in there had just discontinued. Okay, so now that the background is over, let's go into the story y'all came here for. I was on a NOC shift with another CNA, but this one is much older than the others. She's like late 30s, early 40s, Latina mom with two kids. She's not conventionally super attractive, but she's a wonderful CNA, a great person, and she has a big butt. She also mentored me a lot at the start of the job, and I feel a connection to her because of that. And I guess the feeling was mutual. I'll call her Carla. So here we are, just the two of us on NOC, no one around except housekeeping. We were flirting around, joking, making each other laugh so hard I could tell she was having so much fun. She probably hasn't felt a connection like that to another man in 10 years. I could see in her eyes that she wanted me. We were in a residence room, the lights were dim, and the residents were sleeping. I asked her if we should go check on a certain resident, but instead of answering, she gave me an intense, longing gaze. I don't even think she was paying attention to me, just overcome with her lust. I had enough and I made a move on her. Things got hot and heavy, and she kept whispering, "This is wrong," and "Este es malo," or something like that. I told her we should find somewhere private, so we went into the linen closet. However, she became paranoid that housekeeping might go in there, so we instead went next door to the soiled linen closet, and there we started getting it on. Here's where the fuck up comes. I have her positioned up on top of a dirty linen basket and was going at her. Little did we know she was being smeared in shit and piss from the dirty linens, as some of the bags in there weren't tied up. I don't know how we didn't notice or smell it. I guess the excitement of such a taboo moment really gets you drunk with adrenaline. We went at it for like 20 to 30 minutes. When we finally finished, we realized we had shit and piss on us and started freaking out. We must have been loud about our concerns because suddenly the door opened. Housekeeping. At this point, we were clothed but visibly covered in human waste, and the odor must have been atrocious. The housekeeping lady yelled a little, jumping, and then hesitantly turned away and hurried off. We didn't talk to her about it to try to explain. We had no explanation, no lies that would explain away this bizarre scenario. We cleaned off as best as we could and carried out the rest of our shift as usual. Carla put on her spare backup scrubs. I didn't have any. This happened yesterday, Monday, and I don't go back down to work until Monday. I haven't heard anything about the incident yet, so I'm hoping to God that the housekeeping lady doesn't report anything. I am freaking out about it and I can't sleep. TLDR, I got caught having sex with an older CNA in her early 40s in the soiled linen closet. We got covered in human waste.